computer, and I've lost all my favorites.
Yes, I can send you a link to the chat. It's just actually all you have to do is
just go into his blog.
Go to HockeyBuzz. Yeah, my blog. It's in there. That's where it is.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So we're gonna let's get going right away. Although the worst thing I want to say is what the heck? So what's this report that Daniel Alfredsson's supposed to skate in the warm-up with the Senators?
He's being honored, I think, or something.
He's being honored. They're skating him in the warm-up.
Well, he's. I mean, they're having a ceremony on the 4th, I believe, but I haven't heard anything. I mean,
yeah, so that makes sense. All right, that's interesting. He's skating. I'm just checking. Anyway, all right. Let's start the show. As Internet Explorer stops working, I just got a message. Internet Explorer has stopped working. All right, let's go. It's working here. All right.
Mike, Kevin, Josh?
Yes, Mike, Kevin, Josh.
Okay.
I'll save mine.
Not Friday, Eck.
It's not Friday. I got one of these Ponos sent to me. A guy works at this company called Pono. This is Neil Young's music project, where he does this. This is lossless, so it's basically this is super high quality recordings, which our kids have never heard. They don't know non-compressed music at all.
There's some other stuff going on here, guys.
All right, we'll get to it. Let's start. But I have to rant on this later, so I definitely will.
Yeah.
So let's begin the show. Ready? Tuesday, December 2nd. So it's 12/2/14. Here we go. Hey, Hockey World. How you doing? It's Tuesday, September. Oh, God.
There you go.
You're back. All right. Again. Hello, Hockey World. How you doing? It's Tuesday, December 2nd, 2014.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Kevin Allen of USA Today Sports.
I'm Josh River.
And I am Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. We've got signings, we've got rumors, we've got all kinds of crazy things for you today, for today's show to start off with. But we're going to start with the signing that now appears to be done, or very close to done, first reported by Mr. Darren Dreger at TSN, I guess earlier today, that Marty Brodeur has signed a one-year deal with the St. Louis Blues. Now, this is interesting on a lot of levels. Not surprising, and I'll give you my take on this in a second as to why it's not surprising, but I want to start with Kevin on this one and see what your thoughts are on this signing in general.
Well, I mean, I think we all thought that the longer this went into the season, the less likely that Brodeur would end up getting signed. But we also knew that if there was an injury of significance with a contender, that he was going to be, the perfect fit, and that's exactly what happened. Brian Elliott was taken out off the roster by an injury, and they're left with Jake Allen, who's performed at a pretty high level, but he's still a young goaltender, and I think it's a perfect fit to have Marty Brodeur come in and serve as both a mentor and a backup goalie, and I just don't see him unless somehow Jake Allen falters, but I don't see that happening. I don't see him suddenly becoming the man in St. Louis, but I think this is a pretty good, nice situation for Brodeur to be in, because if Jake Allen had a slump, he would could get some games in, and I think he's still capable of playing at a high level. He's certainly not Marty Brodeur in the prime of his career, but he's got to be among the most proven backups in NHL history. I mean, you don't usually get the winningest goalie in NHL history.
Right.
So, I think this is good for everyone involved, and a chance for him, depending on what Elliott happens with Elliott, to be on a contending team down the stretch.
Yeah, and I guess let's go to Josh for the actual details of the deal, which are interesting, and then I want to talk a little bit about Hitchcock and how I think that's could have played into it based on some conversations I've had with Hitch in the past. But Josh, what's the nitty gritty of this whole deal?
Yes, it's a one-year deal, as you said, for $700,000 plus bonuses, and apparently one of the bonuses, according to Jeremy Rutherford from the Dispatch in St. Louis, is that Brodeur will receive $10,000 for every point he earns. Again, we talked about this off the air. Is it points that he gets? Because we know Brodeur likes to get in on the action, on the scoring, on the score sheet, assists, sometimes even scores a goal. It's been a while, though. But obviously it's got to be points earned as a team in the game.
This is interesting on so many levels. I love these kind of bonuses in hockey, and I love the fact that somehow these are still allowed via the CBA. that boggles my mind as well. But let's just start right here. Points earned. Let's just discuss that for just a minute. First of all, this is the St. Louis Blues we're talking about. They could play, they could be playing the Carolina Hurricanes, and Brodeur could be in there, and he could stop 4 shots in a game. Is that a 2 points earned? Or did he not really earn those points for them or not? That's what I want to know, first off. Who's proving what is earned and what is not earned?
See, I'm going to take it literally. I think it means points, meaning goals or assists, so it's going to be really strange when he jumps into the rush on the power play with Jay Bouwmeester and Kevin Shattenkirk.
Yeah, that's not what it means. We're sure it doesn't mean that, but it's a good try, Mike. But I think but what this does, this is a weird thing to give a backup goalie. What other backup goalie would ever get this this clause in their contract? I mean, this is a backup goalie, Kev.
Well, I mean, I just think it's a way to honor, Brodeur's, who he is to the game. You find ways to give him a chance to earn more than $700,000. I mean, he's earned a lot of money in his career, and he's basically taken the salary of a journeyman player. And I think, because he's doing that, they're being a little creative and saying, hey, we'll give you an opportunity. Should Jake Allen, for example, go out with an injury, heaven forbid if you're a big Blues fan, and suddenly Brodeur got in. Well, you want to give him the opportunity to, being paid for what he contributes. So, this is a pretty fair way to do it. $20,000 to win, and if he's a backup and plays once every 7 or 8 games, he might get 10 games in, so that's an extra 200. If he won them all, an extra 200,000, he could get up close to $1 million. So I think it's not so. I mean, it's unique because of his stature, but I think it's just finding a way to give him an opportunity to move beyond what is pretty a journeyman salary that he's now receiving.
Yeah, that makes some sense.
Well, it's funny that this is not unprecedented in the history of the Blues. If you look in the late '60s, they brought in Glenn Hall and they brought in Jacques Plante, who were presumed to be over the hill, and they had fantastic seasons for the Blues, getting to the Stanley Cup Finals. I think it was in '68 and '70. Grant Fuhrer, late in his career, went there when Gretzky was there in the mid '90s, and now Brodeur. So it seems to be like the fountain of youth for Hall of Fame goaltenders to go there and get a last crack at things. I mean, what I'm wondering is, and I haven't heard any details yet, is how severe Elliott's injury is. I would only think that they would bring Brodeur in if this is a 6 to 8 week injury, and they'll cross the bridge of what they do when Elliott comes back, when it comes to that point. If that's in February and Brodeur has played well, I don't. Maybe they just carry 3 goaltenders, but it's going to be awkward. If you have 3 goaltenders trying to get them enough playing time.
Well, I think knowing Hitchcock, a couple things. This is my theory about Hitchcock. First of all, Hitchcock doesn't do anything unless he's got 5 reasons to do it. He told me this one time. 5 reasons. So we got to find the 5 reasons they signed Marty Brodeur. All right. First off, I do believe that obviously that it's a good mentor to Jake Allen. Hitch obviously sees something in Allen that Brodeur could help with, because Hitch knows Brodeur very well, knows Allen well at this point, and he must know something here. There's some part of Marty's game that he thinks will help Jake, right? Obviously, I don't want to throw all the pressure on Jake Allen right now, and this is not unprecedented with Hitchcock either. He's not one, when the window is wide open like it is right now for the Blues, to trust everything in a young goalie, even a goalie who's had as much experience and as much success as Jake Allen has had. He's not one to trust that. So, coming down, I think it's perfectly feasible that if Elliott's injury is serious enough that he's out for a significant amount of time, or maybe even out for this season, like something that we don't know about yet, that Brodeur could challenge Elliott for the starting spot come playoff time. Because I think that with Hitchcock that's very possible. I don't think that we should assume that I'm sure Brodeur was told that he's got a shot at that at least. or at least and Hitchcock is one of those guys who really he's always loved Marty Brodeur. I mean, he coached against him here in Philly, talked about how he was a game changer, how he is controlling the puck, how he's a big goalie. He's the kind of goalie that Hitchcock just has always longed for. And the history of this team, like you say, Mike, when you thought history, I was thinking in different terms, not long term. But you're right; those are great points about the kind of the place for goalies to end their careers. But the history of this team in the playoffs in the recent years has been not great goaltending, and even issues of not healthy goalies. Having 3 goalies is not the worst thing in the world if you're the St. Louis Blues. They've been down this road where they had Halak and Elliott, and both had good years, but Halak was injured, and they had to go with Elliott in the playoffs, and it fell apart on them.
Well, for years, it was for all the time that Halak was in St. Louis, it was always rumored that Hitchcock did not have any confidence in him, and maybe it was the fact that Halak is not the biggest of goaltenders, and as you said, Hitchcock likes big goaltenders, but Halak is proving right now with the Islanders that he's an excellent goaltender, so I think that was sort of unfounded, but they never really. He got hurt in one playoff, and Elliott had to go in. But
I'll tell you what Hitch would say about the Islanders situation right now. It's proving with the Islanders in the Eastern Conference during the regular season that he's a good goalie. I know where Hitch would go with this. He would say, throw him into a playoff series against the Blackhawks or the Kings and tell me how good a goalie he is, because those guys are going to crash the net with vigor, and then his size is going to be a matter. It's going to be an issue. That's what he would say. That's what Hitchcock would say, because Hitch doesn't look in terms of with the Blues. It's all about the playoffs, right? This is all about. They went out of their way this year to say even that the regular season didn't even matter to them. I mean, there were times when I heard things where they said, we had to figure out how to make the regular season work for the playoffs. Like last year, I think the whole going out and trying to win the President's Trophy, being really strong, that just meant nothing to them, right? So that in his mind, they burned out. So he's trying to pace this out over the whole season.
Well, it'll matter to them. I mean, if you remember a few years ago, the one thing that the Blues wanted to avoid was playing the Kings in the first round, and they ended up playing them, I think, a couple times because the matchup was just not great. With the new divisional playoff setup, the one thing that they want to do is not get the Chicago Blackhawks in the first round. And now that Nashville and them are tied for first place, if they win first place in that division, the likelihood of them playing the Blackhawks in the first round is remote, because I don't think the Blackhawks are going to finish as one of the 2 wild cards. I think they'll be a top 3 team in that Central Division. So they want to avoid Chicago in the first round and play Winnipeg or Dallas or something like that.
Great point, Mike. This is a great point, and this is what Kevin. I mean, is there a worse position right now to finish than second or third in that division? I mean, right now, who wants to be second or third? I mean, right now, it almost makes more sense. Teams are going to look at that. Rather play, even though Nashville's been good, they'd much rather play Nashville than Chicago.
Oh, no doubt, for sure. I mean, this is one of those situations where the standings don't really reflect the danger level of the opponent. For the postseason, and the LA Kings are the best example of that. I mean, basically what you were talking about, the Blues, having an LA Kings style attitude, which is, we use the regular season to get ready for the playoffs, and no matter where you see the Kings situated, they got a shot to win the Stanley Cup because of the style of play that they have for the postseason. And I think the Blues have that attitude. With regard to what they probably told Marty Brodeur, like I don't disagree with you that there's certainly a possibility that if you sign Marty Brodeur's insurance, you have to accept the fact that at some point there could be something catastrophic and Brodeur could end up being your number 1 goalie. I think that's true, and I'm sure they've kind of told him that. But I would bet that Hitchcock and Armstrong have said, look, Jake Allen is our guy. He is the young guy that we think is the foundation of this franchise's goaltending moving forward. And they may. I don't think they're offering him a chance to compete unless there's a catastrophic situation. I would bet they're saying, he's our guy. But who knows? You've been around the league a long time. You know what can happen. But I doubt whether they've said to him it'll be a fair competition. I think they've had to be. I think Hitchcock and Armstrong would have been pretty honest and said, look, it's Jake Allen's job for now, and unless something goes wrong.
Well, I agree that's what they're saying. I think that's what they're saying. I don't know if that's necessarily the reality of the situations, knowing Hitchcock and feeling like Hitchcock is backed into a corner a little bit right now. Like, he has to do something this year. They have to. He's gotten them. They've improved under his regime, no question. But if they don't win a playoff series or 2 this year, So Hitch is backed into a corner, and when he's backed into a corner, he's a gut guy. He's going to go with his gut, and I really think that putting Brodeur and Hitchcock into the same field in this is really going to be interesting. It's not going to just be an obvious thing. If Jake Allen loses a game in the playoff series, there's no question that Hitch will not hesitate to move.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know your point, because I think there is a Hitchcock does trust his instincts, and I think what you're saying is if he watches Jake Allen and Jake Allen doesn't look comfortable, would he go to Brodeur? I think the answer to that is yes. But I think if Jake Allen loses a game in the playoffs and he still looks like he's on his form, I don't think he'll shift and go to Brodeur. I don't think it's they're going to have that level of they're not going to be in a rush to move him in. I guess is my point. But again, we also don't know when Elliott's going to be back and how that's going to work. But I do agree that I think there's a possibility here that they'll just view it as a 3-goalie situation. But you can't shun Brian Elliott either. I mean, he's served this franchise pretty well. And been pretty effective. We keep trying to move Elliott out in the media, and he just keeps hanging in there and playing well. And
Elliott's seen Ryan Miller come in now, Marty Brodeur come in.
With Halak, and when Halak was there, everybody was saying, well, it's Halak's job and everything else, and then Elliott just kept playing well. He's just played well all the time, and we keep trying to move him out of there, and he could come back and play well again, and it could be Elliott. And and what's interesting about goaltending is how well Crawford has played this season in Chicago. Not only are you dealing with the Blackhawks, who are very dynamic offensively, although a little less so this season because of injuries and other factors, but their defense is the second best in the league right now, and Crawford's having probably his best season. So goaltending will be crucial in that series. So that again, that would feed into your theory. But I guess I really do accept it, because I think your assessment of Hitchcock is right on the money. I think he does trust his instincts, and if he felt that Brodeur's experience gave him the best opportunity, I think he would shift to that. All my point is I don't think it'll be simply a matter of if Jake Allen loses a game, there's too much.
You're right.
Brodeur. I think it'll be more of how did Allen look, and again, we don't know this. We're talking about this scenario under the idea that perhaps Elliott could be gone for the entire season, I guess is the way we're looking at this, because Elliott's going to play a role in this as well, if when and if he comes back.
Hey guys, Brodeur's deal has been confirmed now, or shall I say, because we were talking about before about his deal, but it's actually a prorated salary, a little more than $490,000 he's going to get for the season, and he'll earn that plus $10,000 for every St. Louis Blues point when he plays. So that has been clarified.
Okay.
I didn't think it was unclarified. So
I think but what's weird about it to me is it should just be every St. Louis Blues point, because honestly, this is putting in a situation where you have a backup goalie who this is Brodeur. He doesn't need the money, and I know this is Kevin. You're saying what you're saying is true, that this is something that they're just doing in case he ends up being the guy, because all things fall apart, and then you're only paying him $495, and that's not fair. But it's a little bit weird.
Usually games played, isn't it, Eck?
Yeah, games played, or he's going to be the backup, and he's going to play a part in Jake Allen, and he's not going to. I don't know. I don't think obviously Brodeur is not about the money, so this is just it's just with any other player this would be really odd to me. Like if
it's odd, but I wouldn't worry your pretty little head over it. I don't think and I don't think anybody's losing sleep over this.
No, I don't think so.
Otherwise you'd be scoring more points than Barrett Jackman. But go ahead.
Yes. Josh, what else do you have? What other good news do you have today?
Well, some interesting news. The LA Kings insider actually tweeted this out not too long ago, and I think that's what's his he writes for their website as well. The name escapes me right now.
It's the guy they call the mayor.
No, not the mayor. He is. anyway, well, I'll get to that in a second. But apparently he tweeted out that Slava Voynov is on the ice skating with the Kings. Now, I didn't think he was allowed to skate with the Kings during this whole suspension. Am I wrong in saying that?
You're right in saying that. That was my understanding, that he wasn't allowed to practice with the team or be with the team.
Yeah. So I don't know what's going
maybe
on
something's
there.
happening that we don't know about.
Yeah. So that's something that maybe we should try to look into and clarify and see why that is the case that he's skating, because he's not supposed to participate in any activities with the team.
It does bring up the point. Is it fair that he's being suspended at this point? I mean, someone brought this up to me yesterday. You can sit there and you can say it looks like he's guilty and all this stuff, but is it honestly fair in this land we live? Like in this country that's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty? Is it really fair, Kevin, that he's being suspended?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, this is an ACLU, civil liberties, libertarian, type of argument. And I guess if you're looking at it, if I can, argue the side from the league, just because, we should do that, I think what they would say is that, he has not been suspended for the crime. He's being suspended for being involved in this situation with the facts that they know it. And so, I think what they would say is look, if you get involved somehow with your wife and your wife is being injured, has been injured, and you end up at the hospital at 1 o'clock in the morning, you have somehow have conduct on becoming a player, and so right now you're sitting out for that. And if it turns out that you're found guilty of a crime, then they're going to suspend him for whatever. Is it going to be 40?
Yeah. Well, it's a bit of a slippery slope, because I mean, I know in the past when we talked about this, I mentioned the Ray Rice situation, and if you look at what happened with Ray Rice just recently, he was waived by Baltimore, and Roger Goodell, the commissioner of the NFL, suspended him, and that was overturned by a judge a couple days ago. So basically, and at this point now, I mean, not that any NFL team is going to pick him up because nobody wants to take the PR hit, but Voynov, I mean, if the NHL was following what the NFL or what other professional sports were doing, they would probably allow Voynov to play until the decision was made. But the thing is, I think that they read the negative repercussions and the negative publicity that the NFL received because of Rice and because of Adrian Peterson, and they're making sure that they're cleaner than Caesar's wife. So they don't want to go down this road where, okay, we don't want to get, we find out that he did be, that he gets found guilty, and then we let this guy play all this time. They're going to be better safe than sorry.
Yeah, but I don't like that. I think you're playing devil's advocate there, Mike. I don't think you believe what you're saying.
No. I mean, what I'm saying is, I mean, the one problem I had with this whole situation was you deprived the LA Kings of a player who was a valuable player, $4 million worth of cap room that prevented them from being able to replace him. Now, it's not easy to replace a defenseman, but at least the NHL stepped up and said, okay, we're going to give you cap relief and you can go out and get yourself a player. What they did is they signed Jamie McBain, and at least they have an NHL defenseman filling in for him instead of somebody from Manchester in the AHL. But yeah, I mean, you're not going to get a player the quality of Voynov back in the lineup or be able to trade for somebody of his quality without giving up something else. So it's a weird situation, but I think in every part of it, the LA Kings are sort of are getting the short end of the stick.
I agree, and I mean, what if? Let's play the other side of it. What if it comes out? I mean, it doesn't appear this way from all that we've seen, and then the fact they're suspending him makes him look even more guilty because perhaps,
right.
They know something that we don't, or there's other, that's the perception at least. So, if the NHL is about perception, the perception is that he's guilty, and that's, that's the perception we're getting, right?
Right.
What else do you have, Josh? Go ahead.
Well, with Voynov, guys, and by the way, LA Kings insider is John Rosen. I apologize if John is watching the program. I thought it was actually someone else. But anyway, Voynov actually practiced and skated with Alec Martinez today during practice. I've reached out to the NHL and asked how is Is there a reason why he can skate with the Kings? Because again, we're under the assumption that he's not allowed to participate.
Yeah.
And then maybe he's not really skating with the Kings. I mean, they might just say, you know, there's nothing to keep him from going on the ice. I mean, it's like, you know, if the practice is from 1 to 2:30, you know, and he's out, you can't keep him from going on the ice from 11 to 12. And if Martinez happens to be on the ice at the same time, I mean, we're not talking about, you know, practicing with the team. We're just talking about, you know, obviously the guys should be trying to stay in shape. You would expect that he would be renting ice time or something during this period of time from somebody to actually you know, keep his conditioning up. I mean that, but it is a really slippery slope, and the longer this goes on with this thing really feeling like it's not going to be resolved anytime at all, you know, like there's no real set like it's going to be resolved. The more, to me, this starts to feel wrong. It starts to feel like we're actually, you know.
Well, I saw yesterday that the next step in the process, the legal process, is not going to happen until the middle of December. I think it was December 15th that I saw in the report. So, I mean, you're talking about, more than likely, if this goes to trial, you're talking about this maybe January, February. You're talking about the entire season.
And we're talking. This is an NHLPA issue in my mind. Like the NHLPA is in a tough spot here because the NHLPA should be fighting for Voynov right now. They should be saying, wait a second, you know, he hasn't been convicted of anything. You know, they should, and you know, I wonder if he actually did it, if he went to court and tried to get some kind of injunction, if he would win. You would think he would, because.
Well, I mean, okay, he is getting paid. So, I mean, the thing, if he wasn't getting paid, then I think it would be a PA issue, but he is getting paid.
That's true.
You know, now all they're doing is they're depriving him of his ability to step on the ice and play. But if you know, and I think if he was being suspended without pay, this would be a major kerfuffle. But right now, I think it's just, okay, they're going to wait till the legal process filters out. Wait till there's a resolution. But, you know, again, the party that is hurt the most here, I mean, you know, obviously, you know, I'm talking about as a hockey player, the party that's being hurt the most is the LA Kings because they're being deprived of their player.
Yeah, that's true. And the Kings, and this has definitely affected the Kings. There's no question about it. The loss of Voynov was bigger to the Kings, I think, than anybody would have expected it to be.
Yeah, and I mean they're having, you know, other situations. Gaborik has got a minor injury. You know, I mean, could this be Stanley Cup hangover? I mean, they did, you know, this is what, 2 cups in 3 years. I mean, 4 years. Sure. I mean, you know, you play all those games into the late June, and then you come back in October and expect to be fresh as a daisy. It doesn't happen that way. So
yeah. You know. Yeah, I agree there. All right, well, let's move on from it. But it is going to be fun to watch, at least, and it is definitely a bigger issue than hockey. And if it continues out through the entire season, Voynov could actually sue the NHL. I mean, even though he's getting paid, there's no question that his value is being diminished by the fact that he could sit there and argue.
Well, okay, just arguing the value point, unmute Kevin, by the way. If you're talking about the value, I mean, he is signed on a long-term deal. If he was a restricted free agent or an unrestricted free agent, then this would definitely affect his value because he's got to go out on the open market and try to generate interest from other teams. And if that was the case, him not playing this entire year would affect his value. But he's locked up on a long-term deal making, I think, over $4 million. So in that sense, the league and the Kings are covered.
Yeah, I guess so, but I mean, you know, what we were talking about, Kevin, while you were gone, is the whole fact of, you know, how much this actually is affecting his career in terms of if it does turn out that he's innocent for some reason, you know, down the line, like, and because it's not the court is a trial is going to be determined sometime in the middle of December apparently, and then this could very easily blow up the entire year.
Wow. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I talked to his attorney numerous times in this, and you know, he's going to ask for you know, an expeditious trial, just for the reasons you guys articulated. That it's, you know, has an impact on his career, and you know, they feel they have a strong case. I mean, basically, it'll be based on the fact that his wife is going to say that you know, he did not attempt to hurt her. Although right now they have, you know, basically, you know, I think this is one of the problems that so you can't disprove the negative.
Right.
You know, I mean, he can't talk because he's got a potential trial looming, and the league needs him to say what exactly happened. And all we really know is that we have the wife quoted as saying that he didn't intentionally try to hurt me. So they're dealing with that, but it does have long-term ramifications on his career. Win, lose, or draw in this case. Because I mean, we all know what happens in today's society. Even if you're innocent, you have the kind of the stain of this happening, and people believing that the jury reached the wrong verdict. Certainly, let's just use the most famous case of O.J. Simpson. He was found innocent, or found not guilty. But do people believe he was innocent? Well, no, of course not. They don't. So, and I think that, that will be a case for Voynov. So, it'll come down for the Kings about whether or not, or to Voynov himself, with regard to can he exist in the LA area and will he be comfortable there given all that he's been through. I mean, sometimes it works out, and I think maybe it'll be easier in LA than it would be if he were in, say, Toronto or Philadelphia or New York, or in the markets where there is just a lot more media to deal with on a regular basis.
Yeah, and LA is so accustomed to this sort of controversy.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah.
This is not. If this happens in St. Louis, or Nashville, then it could be a bigger issue too, because that's a kinder, gentler area. That we might necessarily agree with this. Josh, you have something?
Yeah, guys, I just want to point out the fact right now. I don't know if you've seen social media here in the last half hour to 45 minutes, but people right now are tearing apart the LA Kings for letting Voynov skate. There's a lot of women on there right now that are very angry, and rightfully so, that he's allowed to participate. The NHL's getting hammered with tweets. The Kings account's getting hammered with tweets. A lot of people are not happy about this whole situation right now.
Well, the interesting thing when the chickens can come home to roost, I mean, say for example, at the end of this, there's a plea bargain and he gets found guilty of a misdemeanor, if it's something like that. What does the NHL do then? I mean, they're probably going to have some sort of suspension or address the situation in some way. They can't just say, okay, we suspended you for all this time, and now that it's been adjudicated, you can come back. They're probably going to have to do something on top of his legal situation to address it, to set a precedent that we don't want our players doing this, and you need to watch your P's and Q's. Now this is probably in the CBA, Kevin. I would assume there's something to address this, but it's a PR nightmare for these professional sports that these players are doing this, and they have to police things just like the cops and the legal situation have to.
I want to go along with that, Kevin, and if as you respond to that, I want to know what well, another thing we talked about while you were gone is, has the NHLPA done enough in this situation for Voynov as representing him, or that's my other thought, or they've really, I can't tell, have done anything.
Well, there's not much they can do. The part of the problem is, this doesn't happen all the time. Like, you can never write a CBA that will cover every contingency that's going to happen.
Of course.
And
Lord knows they've tried.
No, they have tried. But it's just the whole landscape changed after Ray Rice.
Yeah.
I've covered the league a long time, and we haven't had many of these. But we've happened to have two now in a year, and the other one turned out to, the legal case fell apart for whatever reason, and this one seems to be holding together, at least for the time being, in terms of there's a follow through in terms of the player getting charged. Now, Voynov's agent has tried to get them to reduce the to allow him to play. He's made an appeal to the league, or at least he's done so in the public domain. Whether he actually reached out to the league, I don't know the answer to that. It's such a complicated thing, and I think you just hit the nail on the head when you said the league was going to get hammered no matter what they do.
Yeah.
But I do think this. I think once this is, we know what's going to happen. Once the trial portion is over and the league makes its ruling, then I think you'll see the PA bare its teeth if they think the punishment is too harsh, or they may just appeal just because that's what they do in order to
general principle.
Yeah.
Voynov is cleared of charges, and anything's possible, like we talked about O.J. Simpson or what have you. Then he is perfectly within his realm to go after the NHL for this.
Where's the damages? I mean, you got to prove that his career is going to be hurt. I mean, he's still earning the same amount of money. He got all the money here. I mean, this is a paid suspension.
But his next contract is definitely going to be affected by this.
Maybe. It depends on how he plays.
Yeah, I guess that's true too. And that's the reality of the situation. You're right, Josh. What do you have?
One last bit of info on Voynov. By the way, the guy I was thinking of before was Rich Hammond, but it was John Rosen. Besides that, Dean Lombardi spoke to Rich Hammond just now and would not comment on whether Slava Voynov's NHL status has changed. Not sure what that means, guys.
Yeah, and he has 4 years left on his current deal at $4.1 million. So I think 4 years, 4 years down the road, not to say that this is forgotten, but it will be a footnote rather than on page one of his dossier. So I don't think if he plays well, I don't think it's going to affect his career.
So maybe we go back to what we said before. Maybe there's something has happened here.
But here's the bottom line on this: in the court of public opinion, it's clear that society wants sports leagues to come down hard in these situations.
Right.
And that was clear in the Ray Rice situation, where public appeal, had an impact. People standing at the gate and forming a protest line had an impact on what happened to Ray Rice. And you know what? At the end of it, when he appealed it, the court said, well, he was treated unfairly. And so I think what the league is trying to do here is they're trying to respond to, their constituency is their fans, and I think they sense their fans want them to come out strong against this. They're trying to do that, but I think at some point there is a fairness issue to Voynov because, as you've said, he is supposedly in this country innocent until proven guilty, and even if you want to. You feel that it's just to be able to suspend him from playing pending investigation of it. At some point, it can't be an indefinite investigation.
Right.
So,
exactly.
At some point, maybe they'll lift the suspension and said, pending what happens in the trial now. So, he has sat out a lot of games. He's paid a price for being involved in this.
I think we can all agree the Kings have had a bigger impact. I mean, the Kings, it's definitely affected the Kings, I think, bigger than we expected. I think Voynov, to me, appears to have been a bigger part of that team than I realized. That's just my own opinion. Like, that Voynov has, talking to people, around the Kings, although I swear to you that I have a really good source in the Kings who doesn't think he's ever going to play for the Kings again, that he thinks that this will be resolved and the Kings will move him immediately. I don't know whether that's true or not, but he says he really does think that there is within the organization a definite movement. And when you see all that, all the letters that are coming in and stuff like that right now, that could be.
Well, that can be a part of what we talked about yesterday. I mean, they need to sign Alec Martinez. He's a UFA at the end of the year. They got a couple restricted free agents. They have Kopitar to sign after next year, I believe. If they think he would benefit. I mean, there's been numerous situations in the NHL over a number of years where players were traded not only because it was beneficial to the team, but it was beneficial to the player to get out of that particular city for reasons I won't go into. That this might be like, okay, let him go someplace else, have a fresh start. We get equal value back or something that we could use back, and then things are all fine. I mean, it's happened before. It'll happen again.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move on. The chat room wants us to move on to rumors. We want to move on to other things too. So let's talk about what some are terming the Bowlsma Bowl, which is tonight as the Flyers take on the San Jose Sharks in San Jose. Which team will be the first to go after Dan Bylsma? I want to adjust for. There's a couple things about this game. First of all, Vinny DeCavier is being scratched. which and I think we should start there. This is a bizarre situation. Vinny actually came into this camp way more in shape than he was last year. He came in looking great for the first 10 games of the season, and then they started moving him around on different lines and shifting him around, and he, back to the wing, and he's still been effective, but he has definitely struggled. He's not really a Berube type player, and I think that's playing into it. Like, Hartnell wasn't a Berube type player either, and now he's being scratched while R.J. Umberger, who really wouldn't be on this team if he was a preseason tryout, but is still on this team right now, is allowed to play. That to me is incredibly bizarre. R.J. Umberger really has brought nothing to the table, and nothing against R.J., but his days are over. It's obvious he can't do what he used to do to be an effective NHL player.
I'm convinced more than ever, Eck, that deal was made because Umberger had less term left on his deal, and that instead of buying out Hartnell, they're going to buy out Umberger. It just makes too much sense now based on the way he's playing. I mean, 23 games, he's got a goal and 2 assists.
Yeah, and it's more than just his points. He's not even an effective penalty killer. He's not been effective in any way, shape, or form. So there's no, but yet, LeCavier, who at least has the skill and can do something spectacular with the puck, is a healthy scratch tonight in San Jose. This is so beyond that, let's just talk about Vinny LeCavier for a second, because Kevin, you really believe he could have value to quite a few teams out there.
I do. He was a 20-goal scorer last season, and he had a poor season. He got moved around. Didn't he end up on the 4th line at the end of last season? As well, and he was on the 4th line against the Rangers, and his ice has been diminished. If he was playing a regular role for some of these offensively challenged teams, and the ones I'm talking about, Arizona, the Florida Panthers, are 2 good examples. Even the Winnipeg Jets. These are teams that I think he could be a 20-goal scorer for, and I think here's the issue, though. I think the Flyers would have to eat some of his salary. I looked it up this morning, and obviously he's a $4.5 million cap hit, but he's a $6 million cash player this year, and then over the next 3 seasons, it's about 10.5. So, the 10.5 part is a pretty good deal for some of these budget teams that don't go to the cap. That would certainly be attractive to a team like, like Florida. But, couldn't Florida or Arizona use a 20-goal scoring center? There's so many teams looking for centers out there that I think he could be effective. And look, I get the whole idea that you don't want to trade within your conference, but at this point, I think the Flyers feel like they would benefit if they have more cap space, and you can do that if you can move out LeCavier. And I think he would benefit because I agree with you. I don't think he's a Berube type of player.
Well, no, he's not a Berube player at all, Mike.
Florida makes the most sense. I was thinking that as well, Kevin. If you look at, a guy like Fleischman, who's making the same amount as LeCavier is, $4.5 million. He's a UFA at the end of the year. It would give Philadelphia cap relief for the 3 years, and maybe Philadelphia would have to eat some of the contract going forward, but it would make sense. And if he, like I said, he hasn't been a fit there. I never understood the signing. They spent way too much. They gave him way too much term after that long deal in Tampa, and I think he would probably like to go back to Florida. I know one place he won't, and I'm not sure if he has a limited no trade or a full no trade. I know one place he would is Montreal.
Yeah, he doesn't. The Flyers had 2 opportunities to trade him this year. Before the season began, and one got very close. One I was told he turned down flat out. So he does have a limited that I heard was essentially done, and that was to a Canadian team, not the Montreal Canadiens. But the other one, that they were trying to work on, they were talking to was Nashville. Now Nashville eventually ended up making the other trades that they made, but this was before that, and Nashville had serious interest in him, and it made sense in Nashville. The Panthers make a lot of sense. What about a guy, the Flyers? What the Flyers need, along these lines, is a guy like Brian Campbell, right? A player that they could actually bring in who actually has some salary as well. And Kevin, what are your thoughts on that? Just this is not a rumor. I'm just throwing this out speculatively.
I just don't think they would trade Brian Campbell. The strength of their team right now, they're still on the outside of the playoffs. They'd like to make the playoffs. They're taking their stand on team defense, and Campbell's crucial to that. He's a talent type of guy, so I don't see that that happening. But I think the fit toward. I think if you're the Flyers, you have to look at this as a chance to open up your roster, your cap situation to make other moves.
Yeah.
And if you want to chase Dustin Byfuglien, for example,
right,
this helps you do that. If you can find a home for Luke Shin, that would also help as well. I think this is one of those situations that I think it would benefit both the Flyers and LeCavier if they could find a place that he could be happy with. And he's 34 years old. He still should have some hockey left in him. Again, he had. I think most people thought he had a poor season last year, and he had 20 goals.
Yeah.
There are teams out there that need centers who can score 20 goals.
Right.
And last year was his lowest point per game production of his career. I don't think it was all LeCavier. I think a lot of it was opportunity.
Well, played a lot on the fourth line, like you said, and and actually did really well in the fourth line. Surprisingly, actually, the fourth line did pretty well around him. There was a few games there where he was actually talking about how much he enjoyed it, how much he enjoyed playing with those guys because they were such hard workers, and they were, he didn't have to go into the corners at all because they were such grinders. And he liked it. He has talent. He's got skill, and he's super classy individual as well, as you know. So this is another thing that sometimes I was watching last night. I was watching the Avalanche Canadiens game, which was a good game. It was a really good hockey game for the middle of the season. And again, shows you the Canadians just do this with mirrors. It's amazing. The way they win games again last night was just a complete microcosm of their season. But they talked a little bit about Danny Briere getting scratched earlier in the year. A similar type situation to LeCavier, and now Briere's come back and scored 5 goals in his last 7 games. And had a really big, had a big impact on, and some of those goals were big goals. And they said that to them, they felt like it was a situation where putting the way Briere handled it. This was the way Briere handled the situation was really good for the rest of the team to see. It was good for the young players to witness how he handled the fact he was scratched with such a professionalism and still came to the rink and still worked hard and got back in the lineup. And he said that really had a big impact on the guys like Nathan McKinnon and Ryan O'Reilly, these guys who were looking at him like saying, okay, this is a guy who's pretty much a legend in this league, and here he is, accepting this well. And I think the Flyers are going to get the same sort of thing out of LeCavier.
Well, and I think the one hindrance to being able to move him is the term left. I mean, if he was a UFA at the end of this year, or if he had 1 year left, I think he would have been moved already. I think the fact that he's got 3, even though it's a front-loaded deal, I think that the 3 additional years is what is going to scare a lot of teams off. And they might be able to find a home for him, but at this point, either they're going to have to take money back, like they did in the Hartnell deal. They're going to have to take back, almost equal term, or they're going to basically get next to nothing for him. And I think more likely it's going to be another player with term left. So I mean, if there's a fit out there, they'll try to make that, but we'll see.
Well, front-loaded deals. The benefit of them, of course, is for teams trying to get to the cap floor. They're a wonderful thing, that they actually help a team get to the cap floor without having to spend the money that they need to spend. And this is where Florida is, and especially if Florida moves some of these guys they're trying to move, because you hear the other rumors. If Florida moves Fleischman, for example, suddenly they're going to be dangerously close to the floor again, and they're going to have to bring in a guy. So this makes more sense to them to bring in a guy like Vinny, and have to not pay him as much but get the cap benefits of it. So. And plus, also, the publicity of bringing in Vinny LeCavier to a Florida team, like you said, is a big deal. Yeah. That could help them greatly. So I think there's some truth there. The question is, where Florida is right now, because Florida, that their owners are looking at this whole situation, saying, we've got a shot at the playoffs here, and because their owners making the playoffs is a big difference. It's a big difference for them.
Well, right now they have a shot at the playoffs. If we're talking 2 months from now, closer to the deadline, and they're 8 or 10 points out of the wild card spot, then then I don't think they'll be as likely to do it. But there is that dynamic, that Florida dynamic, the fact that he was with Tampa Bay, the prominent player of that franchise for a number of years, and the fact that they're going to lose 3 or 4 players in significant salary off their roster, and if you have a guy like LeCavier who can teach the Huberdeaus and the Barkovs how to play, and be a second or third line guy, then it's a deal that makes sense. I mean, a guy who has been on the outs in Florida for a while has been Dmitry Kulikov. That might be a guy who might fit into a Philadelphia situation if they're looking to upgrade their defense. Although he's been an enigma for a number of years, so I don't know how much he would help them. They have enough enigmas on their defense.
He would fit in perfectly on the Flyers' defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think though that the Panthers would look at a LeCavier trade as we're taking him off your hands. So
Right.
You're not going to really give, like, Kulikov has some value. I mean, he's a very talented player, and and so forth. So it would be sort of a fascinating situation, because I think the Panthers could again, he's a named player. But the only other thing I would say about this is like, I think he has some value, and I think you could help some teams. But you have to accept the fact that he's never going to be an edgy player. Like, he is a strict offensive player. I mean, that's clearly, Steve Yzerman didn't appreciate his abilities, and when he arrived in Tampa Bay, he tried to move him, wanted him out. He certainly wasn't an Yzerman type player. I think we agree he's not a Berube type player. So you have to accept his limitations. He is what he is. He's a very gifted offensive player who's now in the twilight of his career. So you have to factor all that in. That's why I say that I think the Flyers would have to eat some of the salary, because he's not Vinny LeCavier 40-goal scorer.
No, but what he does do is he brings some level of experience to that locker room, though, that could really help them. I mean, there's not a lot of players on this team besides Brian Campbell who really have been through this, as much as LeCavier's been. I mean, he's been through this, and the players revere Vinny LeCavier. I've been around the locker room, and you can still say, guys, that even though this is the funny thing about players in the NHL, like when Jágr was here too, certain players just hold a real reverence to other players, and other players look at. It doesn't matter how many points that they're scoring this year or last year. They remember them still as Jaromir Jágr and Vinny LeCavier. That's still how they look at them.
Well, he is a complimentary player right now. But you mentioned Nashville before. I mean, there's been a Philadelphia-Nashville pipeline over the years. Laviolette is now the coach, and they signed LeCavier to play under Laviolette, and then Laviolette gets fired 3 games into the year. They have a failed free agent signing in Olli Jokinen that was a complete bust. But they hit pretty well on Ribeiro and Derek Roy. If that team stays in contention for the remainder of the season and makes the playoffs, putting in LeCavier in that situation, a veteran guy. I mean, you remember the reaction in Nashville when they brought in Peter Forsberg. He was past his prime, but he was a name, and LeCavier is a name, and that team would be looking maybe for offense. That might be a fit. Problem is the 3 years left on the contract.
Yeah, but like we said before, the declining number that you actually have to pay would help a team in Nashville, because that would help. That would be okay, even though the number's going up. Jokinen for LeCavier would be an interesting swap, wouldn't it? I mean, in some ways, that would be like, look, here you're looking at 2 guys who are, I think the Flyers ideally wouldn't do what you're saying, Kevin, which is get rid of his salary so they can make a move for a Byfuglien or something like that. But if you can't, you have to start looking at problem for problem type trades.
Well, Jokinen's less of a problem, because I think he's 1 year, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Didn't sign just for 1 year. So, I mean, I don't know about they were obviously interested in LeCavier last summer, but their situation, I think they're scoring enough goals in Nashville right now. But I know the point Mike's making. You can't get enough goals, especially when I think what's going to happen with the Predators is that, if this keeps up, they're going to wake up and it's going to be late February and they're going to, oh my God, we're still at the top of the conference, and we better get ready. So the more we have, the better. But I would say this: if you're preparing for a playoff run, LeCavier is not the first guy that comes to mind.
Right. Right.
Again, if you're not scoring, but usually a team that's sort of surprised to be where it is and near the top of the conference and getting ready for the playoffs usually goes for grit, playoff experience, that sort of thing. And that's really not LeCavier's strength.
Right, it's not, and I couldn't agree more there. I think that it'll be interesting. One player I would do want to look towards as the trade deadline comes on is possibly Jágr as another, but he would maybe be a little bit more valuable going into a playoff series. But as he's shown in the past few years, and I think he would probably be open to that as well. So.
And the grit guy that Kevin was referring to, who I think will be very popular at the deadline, might be Joel Ward of the Capitals. His name started to pop up about possibly being moved if the Caps don't get into the playoff run. He's had experience. He's performed well in the playoffs, and he's been. I don't know if it's a fit in Nashville, but he did play in Nashville before, so that.
Yeah, they had a little John Drews type moment in Nashville there.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Chris Kontos. There you go.
Yeah, no question about that. Josh, what do you got before we get out of here today?
Well, it kind of goes with rumors, I think, because could this name possibly be out there? Devils today announced that they are healthy scratching Michael Ryder. They're going to have him in the press box as a healthy scratch tonight. The Devils' second leading scorer, mind you, on the team. And Ryder voicing his displeasure with being benched, saying, "Yeah, I'm angry. Of course I'm angry." When he was asked by the New Jersey papers, "You want to play, especially when I think I can help the team. If the coach doesn't feel you can help the team, it's his decision." Ryder couldn't recall the last time he was a healthy scratch, and he didn't see it coming.
I remember.
No, it's the coach's decision.
I do, because he was a healthy scratch in the Flyers-Canadiens playoff series. And this was a really controversial thing at the time because and he was actually seen in the Four Seasons Hotel, in Philly after one of the games. It was a big deal. It was a whole mess. But anyway, yes, I do remember him being that last night he was healthy scratch. Maybe I should call him up. I don't remind
There you go. And he says, "Nope, it's the coach's decision. He's got to do what he's got to do." Ryder said, "Obviously, you have to score goals, but the whole team is struggling to score goals. Pete DeBoer has decisions he thinks are best, and if I don't fit in, that's it." So, read into that.
That's it.
Yeah. So is he saying, is that his way of saying, that's it, I want out?
I don't know. That's a little modifier he threw in there at the end there. Kind of
he's a UFA at the end of the year among 10 unrestricted free agents for the Devils, who I think could have a dramatic changeover next year. So, I don't know how much he is anymore.
I don't know what his history is for being a healthy scratch. I remember the incident that Eck is speaking about. But wherever he's been, there's always been there's a feeling that he could give more. That's been throughout his career, and he's always ended up being a player who ends up in a coach's doghouse for whatever reason. So.
Yeah, he's got a history of doghouses, that's for sure.
Yeah, you haven't even scratched Kadri,
the Chateau
Bow Wow. The second leading scorer.
Yeah, no, this is the second leading scorer in the Devils too is not exactly a big number. So let's realize that too. The Devils don't put up points at all. So this is.
Josh mentioned the magic word, Kadri. TSN's Darren Drager reported yesterday that he would be surprised if Nazem Kadri was a member of the Maple Leafs after the March trade deadline. Not that that's any kind of great shock, but because I think Drager said the same thing last year. But I have the feeling that things are starting to come to a head with Kadri. You've got his former GM from the London Knights, Mark Hunter, is now the assistant GM in Toronto. Brendan Shanahan has already had a discussion with him about, putting out more effort. When he puts forth a good effort, he is an effective player. But he takes shortcuts. He in his own defensive zone, he creates problems. He's an inconsistent player, but he's got a lot of talent. So at this point,
but what you could like, would anyone be able to, like, would anyone be willing to give up anything, like a good piece for him? I'm not so sure.
I think
he traded Steen at one point, so hey, anything's possible.
Well, yeah, that was for Lee Stempniak, not exactly the world's greatest deal by Cliff Fletcher, but no, to your point, Josh, I think Kadri has enough people out there that would be intrigued. He hasn't been traded around to 2 or 3 places. Every GM is saying I can get the best out of him. He's making.
This is in Toronto, which is a situation where GMs are going to give him the benefit of the doubt that it's been such a screwy team that no one knows what the hell they have, which is what we talked about with Gardner before. It's the same situation.
Yeah, he's a creator.
Kadri could get value out there. There's no question about that.
I would say high value, to be honest, because I think you're right on the money. I mean, GMs around the league are going to say, well, he's in Toronto, he's young, he'll grow up, he's a skilled player.
Right.
We'll get him here. We'll hang him out with X and Y and tell him these things, and we'll pat him on the back, kick him in the rear, and whatever it is they feel he needs, and they'll convince themselves that he's going to be a top line performer.
I mean, is there anybody in the league that in the past that reminds you of someone like Kadri that grew out of it? I mean, I can't even think of anyone that was as cocky as this guy is coming into the league and maybe straightened out.
I'm gonna throw out Mike Bullard's name just for the heck of it. I don't know.
Well, the comparison that I've heard
players like this that have done this.
The comparison I've heard many a time about Kadri has been Mike Ribeiro, especially in Montreal before he got moved to Dallas. Like, he thought he was God's gift. He thought he was Guy Lafleur, and then he ended up getting traded to Dallas. And then he's had an okay career, but I don't think he's anywhere close to being as good as he thought in his own mind. Kadri, we've talked about it before. He was comparing himself to John Tavares. He always talks about himself in glowing terms. He's the only one, because Don Cherry came out this week and said, I wish he'd just shut up and play.
Yeah.
And Don Cherry has been his biggest backer for over the last few years. He's a London, Ontario boy, plays for the Leafs, and now even Cherry is saying, shut up and play.
Well, there's something to that. What do you got there, Josh? What's going on with this?
Don Cherry.
Nicely. We're going to have bobbleheads made of all the people in the Hockey Buzzcast, by the way. I'm going to do that.
Oh, Jesus.
This year.
You can
have an Alec Pagello bobblehead set.
I mean, back to Kadri. Like, Mike, you remember Kadri wanted to wear the number 13 when he made the Leafs.
He wore it with the Marlies. Yeah. I'm surprised he didn't ask for 17. Anyway.
All right. Well, yes. But yeah, we got to end. We're going over time. But we got more rumors tomorrow, guys. We are getting into rumor season, which is the one complaint we get about the Hockey Buzzcast. People want to hear more rumors, but honestly, there haven't been a whole lot to talk about. But we're getting there. We're getting into the season of rumors, and we'll get into talking a lot more about this kind of stuff, because there's definitely the trade deadline is coming. It's in the middle of December is usually when I get the rumor chart together and everything like that. So we're gonna be able to talk about a lot as we go through here, and hopefully with all these teams being the same point value, though, that makes that also slow the rumor world for sure. Yeah. No one knows who everybody thinks they could be good enough, and no one knows that they could fall apart. But I do think that watching San Jose Philly tonight is going to be a good one. I think they're going to see 2 desperate teams tonight in need of something, and 2 coaches really, on short leashes. So I keep an eye on that one for sure. But thanks again for everybody. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you soon. See you tomorrow.